So I'm Shannon Scott. I think you both know me. I am a full-time real estate agent. I focus primarily on residential home sales. I am the owner of the Scott team. My office is down at Scott Air Force Base. I have served the Scott Air Force Base community housing needs for the last 17 years. I am also a member of the ALC Agent Leadership Council. I'm the head of the Career Development Committee. I know a little bit about what I'm doing, so I promise you're in good hands. Today, I won't steer you wrong. My main goal is to keep you out of real estate jail with today's class and to keep you from getting fined. How does that sound?
Right.
That
Works
sounds
for me.
wonderful. Also,
Excuse
to
me.
help you get paid on time. Because if we're not getting paid, what are we doing this for, right? I mean, we love people, but we like to get paid. Obviously, I don't know how to log in, or my keyboard's not working. Just kidding. No dot loop for you today. Do you guys use dot loop or do you use DocuSign?
I still use dot loop, but I would eventually like to.
Use dot loop? Yay, we'll be speaking the same language today.
Yeah.
I like that.
Well, I haven't been very busy, so I probably need to be trained on it all over again.
Well, Miss Sandy, we need to do something about that.
I know, I'm working on it. I
Need to
got a
get
couple
you
of
in the
leads.
office.
Yes, I know.
Get into some open houses. Girl, I got some open houses coming up if you want to do them.
Okay, that sounds good.
What was the last open house you hosted?
I did one about 2 weeks ago for Mary Ann.
And how did
Over
that
here in
go?
Alton. It's harder to get buyers. I'm having they're all taken, it seems. Most of the open houses I've been doing is they're already scooped up.
Yeah, what about the unrepresented buyers? How's that going?
I haven't really gotten very many. There's a few that I've picked up. I've sent them listings, and I got a couple that are getting pre-qualified now, and we're getting ready to start looking at homes. So
Well, it sounds like you're doing just fine.
well, I'm working them, but it's just a kind of a slow process right now. Some of them have just been kind of sleeping or working on their credit, or I got one couple in Jerseyville that is their youngest is just finishing high school. Of course, he's probably graduated now, and he'll be headed off to college, and they're wanting to downsize. So they want to move to the Alton area. So we'll be starting on that pretty soon. They've been looking at more listings and looking at possibly the fall. You know, they're hoping to be ready by the fall and get their house listed too. So.
Well, keep working them. Buyer, it's up to us to set the tone, right? If we're excited, they're gonna be excited.
Yes,
And if we're taking lead every day and we're working it, then most people will follow suit, so just don't sleep on anyone in your pipeline.
Okay.
How do I share my screen? Okay, so would you two tell me briefly, you just did, Sandy, thank you. And Michael, would you tell me briefly more about where you are in your business so I know what I'm teaching to today, please?
Just really kind of starting out, sort of.
You just got licensed like a year ago, right? Yeah.
I'm just kind of looking at working with buyers. I did like buyer agreements and here. Not really solidified a sale yet.
Okay.
Same process, a lot of people represented. People are the leads that I'm getting, kind of following up, engaging, being proactive and excited for them. I have one lady, she kind of went through the pre-approval process, but she didn't get pre-approved.
Because?
Because she had just started her business. She's doing
She's 1099 income now.
She didn't have the full 2 years of tax returns that they were looking for. So
sounds like we need to introduce you to some different lenders.
yeah, so I gave her like 3 that I knew of. So one that one's a family friend, and some other well-known ones that we had around the area. And the family friend one kind of told me basically what they said too. 'Cause I had meetings with them to kind of ask questions, because, new to the process and all. And that's just an unfortunate.
Is this person, is this person trying to buy a primary residential home?
Yes.
Do they have any down payment opportunity? Do they have cash? No, so they need 100% financing. Have you tried talking to a credit union?
Yes, I referred her to a credit union, to Scott Credit Union.
Yeah, they have a 0% down, but if she's only been 1099, how long has she been 1099?
Maybe just under a year.
So her prior two tax returns are as an employee, as a W-2? She couldn't get financed? Okay, we'll ask around. Okay, so I'm going to teach based on what you've just told me. Good morning, Tyler. I know you're probably at work or busy, but if you are able to jump on, please do. I always love that you're here to listen. Tyler is new in the business, brand new, and Tyler, do you go by Ty or Tyler?
It doesn't matter, either one's
What do you prefer?
fine. Let's do Ty, that's fine.
So Ty is new too, and I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, Ty just joined David Cole's team.
Correct.
Correct, okay, so Ty has started doing some open houses too, so it sounds like you all may be in similar places in your business. So I will keep things like at a super fundamental, like basic level. And I'll try not to get too complex. And here's the concept, guys. Does everybody understand who our contracts are with? When our buyers and our sellers hire us, is the contract with us directly as Shannon Scott Realtor? It's not. Who is it
No.
with?
With the brokerage.
It's with a brokerage. Thank you. So everything that we do is as designated representatives of the brokerage. Okay, is everyone crystal clear on that? Okay, the reason that's important is, remember, you're a fiduciary and you're acting on behalf of the brokerage. That translates to you must follow, of course, as a licensed agent, but also as a representative of the brokerage, you must follow Illinois license law. Furthermore, if you belong to a brokerage that is part of the local association and that is therefore part of the Illinois Association of Realtors and the National Association of Realtors, you also have to follow a code of ethics, right? The number one rule of the code of ethics, good morning, Nicole. The number one rule of the code of ethics is that we follow the golden rule. We treat others as we want to be treated. Okay. And that is do right by others, be honest, be transparent to the extent to which your fiduciary responsibility allows you to. Don't make up stuff. Don't act outside of the law. Follow your client's every reasonable request. And do things in a manner that is compliant, right? Good morning, Pam. It's important for me to hit that point home because I need everybody to completely absorb the fact that fines are real, complaints are real, right? Violations are real. And your license comes with liability. And so this class is extremely important to you. I'm not going to be able to teach you everything today, but if I can leave you with one nugget, it's this. Know your license laws, know your code of ethics, and know your contracts. I personally and professionally, I should say, discourage you from writing any contract with anybody until you have memorized the contracts and have memorized what those contracts mean. That's my advice to you. I understand everybody is eager to get their business started and that we need to make money. But license, fines, and violations, hearings, all of the above, as we've learned this year within our settlement, are very, very real. Okay, so that's the boring part of the class. Now we can get back to having fun. Does anybody have any questions about what I mean when I say you are liable for your acts? Is there any confusion about that and who you represent? Okay. So that's my advice to you. Know your stuff. Don't go out there acting willy-nilly. If you don't know your stuff, be honest and say you don't know it and go find the answer from your brokerage, not from your peers that also don't know it. Your managing brokers are who you go ask, okay? Your association of realtors are who you go ask. Your compliance experts are who you go ask. Your teachers who are allowed to teach because your managing broker has selected your teachers to teach for a reason are who you go ask. You don't go ask your buddy you were in class with that doesn't have any experience. It's like the blind leading the blind. Okay, you don't go out on Facebook and ask someone what to do for compliance or for license law, because those people, most people know what they're doing, obviously, especially if you're here with us and you get good training. But make sure you're going to the right places to get your information. And at the end of the day, it all goes back to your contract, right? All right. So where does it all start? It starts with a contract, right? How do we get through contract to close? Contract to close is where everything can fall apart or everything can go beautifully. We never know which way it's going to go, but we need to know what contract to close is. Who can tell me what they think contract to close is? I won't bite your head off, I promise.
So to me, contract to close means if you are doing a listing that's from the initial, to me, it would be pretty much your initial contact with that person and being put underneath the agreement. And then moving forward all the way through, being put, that contract being put with your team, and then all the way through to when you close, and then even farther than that, because your confidentiality act and everything follows that even farther.
In a roundabout way, that is absolutely part of it. Specifically, when we are talking contract to close, we are talking about the moment that a exclusive purchase agreement or contract to purchase, as we call the residential home sales contract in this area in Illinois, when that is executed, we're talking about day one, the effective date of that contract, all the way through the closing date of the contract. And we're talking about everything that has to happen in between in order to carry that sale through to closing. And specifically what we're talking about are the contingencies inside a contract. Is anybody unsure, and this is a safe place, no judgment, of what I mean when I use the word contingency? Everybody's clear? Just in case someone is possibly confused, contingency is a task, a process, a deliverable that needs to be fulfilled inside the contract. Okay? Almost every one of the paragraphs in our contracts is a contingency. Okay? Now, some of these contingencies have due dates. Almost all of them have actions associated with that. Am I right? Am I wrong? Anyone disagree? Pam gives me the thumbs up, so I know I'm right.
Yes, ma'am.
You guys just go with my antics. It's Friday morning. I've got a belly full of Chick-fil-A and I've got a Yeti full, or not a Yeti, a hydro jug full of soda. I am here for it. Okay. So basically, this is how you fulfill the contract, right? You as a licensed agent, though, have some very minimum responsibilities. Are those responsibilities, are those contingencies all your responsibility? You're correct, they are not. Why are they not all your responsibility?
Some of it requires actions of the buyer or the buyer or the seller to fulfill.
Correct. Some, if not all of those contingencies are the responsibility ultimately of the parties of the contract, because are you actually a party of the purchase agreement? You're actually not a party to the purchase agreement. The lender is not a party to the purchase agreement. The buyer and the seller are the two parties to the purchase agreement. Guys, my keyboard is struggling a little bit. I promise I'm trying to bring you up. Kind of stalling is what I'm doing because I can't show you what I'm trying to show you. Now, does it mean that you go tell your buyer, go deal with it on your own? Absolutely not. Here's what I mean by that. What I mean by that is we do have minimum responsibilities as a buyer's agent, correct? Who can tell me what your minimum duties are as a buyer's agent? I will take you to dinner if you can rattle that off to me. Lunch, breakfast, whatever your jam is. Pam, not you. That is a trick question. I know you can't rattle it off. You're just starting. I'm gonna show you what your minimum duties are. I'll still take you to breakfast if someone wants to go to breakfast. Okay, you have minimum duties to fulfill. As a buyer's agent and as a seller's agent, your license holds you to some minimum duties. Okay? As a designated agent, you are to arrange for inspections of properties identified by the buyer as potentially appropriate for acquisition. This is in your exclusive buyer representation agreement. You have the minimum responsibility to advise the buyer as to the pricing of comparable properties. What does that mean?
May?
A CMA, thank you. So when you're discussing an offer with a buyer and buyer says, how much should I offer? Where are you gonna pull that number from, guys? How are you going to give that advice? You're going to conduct a market analysis. You can't just pull a number out of your hat, right? You're gonna start with a market analysis. Does it mean you guys are gonna strategize and offer exact market value? It does not mean that, because now you have to add the market analysis to the buyer's goals, to the seller's need, to the strategy overall. You've got to come up with a strategy, and it starts with conducting a market analysis, right? You may decide to offer more, you may decide to offer less. And remember, the offer price is not the only piece of the puzzle. This is where you as a fiduciary come in and advising the buyer to add as to the pricing of comparable properties, right? You are the educated person, you have the knowledge, you will advise them. Your other minimum duty is to assist the buyer in negotiation of a contract acceptable to the buyer for the acquisition of the property. What does this mean?
Cheat on their behalf with the seller.
It basically means it's not the offer you want to get accepted, it's the offer your client wants to have accepted. What I want you to take away from this is you need to remove your personal opinions from negotiations. You are a steward to your client. You are a steward of their every reasonable request, whether you agree with it or not. Does anyone disagree with that? And this is a place where we can talk about it. I have no trouble with anyone disagreeing with that. Okay, I'll take silence as everyone understands that nothing that we transact is about our personal opinion. We are stewards to our clients. Our other minimum responsibility is to provide reasonable safeguards for confidential information that the buyer discloses to the buyer's designated agent. What does this mean?
Anything they tell us about their status stays with us.
Correct. Anything they tell you about their status or situation stays confidential with us. I'm going to tell you what it doesn't mean. It doesn't mean you call the listing agent and in order to plead your case, you start telling them all your client's business. You cannot maintain your client in a strategic position for negotiations if you tell the other party all of your client's business. Number one, it's illegal and unethical. And you may think that sharing this information may pull at someone's heartstrings, but I promise you 9 out of 10 times, you're not going to pull anyone's heartstrings. You're going to hurt your client's negotiating power. So if you feel that there are times where those informations are critical and important to share, you must first ask your client if you may share that information. And you may want to tell them why you think it's important to share that information. But you absolutely cannot share confidential information. The only thing you can share is the offer and their minimum financial qualifications to show that they can purchase the property. I will tell you, just yesterday, I had a buyer's agent call me. Oh, that my client went through this and this is happening in their life and it's important because of this and we're offering it. I knew everything and then some. Now listen, I am human and I feel for these people, but do you think that I use that to give the buyer what they wanted or to get my seller what my seller wanted? Who do I represent in this case? The seller. I use the information they gave me against the buyer to get my seller what they wanted. So do not be calling other agents and telling them your client's personal business without permission. You're well-intentioned, I understand, but far too often I have inexperienced agent call me and vomit all over me all their client's business, thinking they're helping. Yes, Pam?
I don't know about you, Shannon, but I always like to get like either a text or maybe an email, say, yes, it's okay to share that information. Just to, in case someone forgets that they said that they could, oh yeah, you can tell them that, Shannon. I always try to say, hey, shoot me a text and let me know that, will ya?
Yeah, Pam's right. I do it for everything. If I arrive early at a listing and I want to enter the listing before my approved appointment, I will text or call an agent. If they call me and give me permission to enter early, I always ask them, hey, can you please text me the permission to enter the property early? And guys, people will, all it takes is for you to piss off the wrong agent and they will go file something against you that you trespassed. You did not have permission to be on that property. And whether it was reasonable because the house was vacant or not and there was nobody else there, the fact is you entered a property that did not belong to you without permission. So always get everything in writing, okay? Everything can be worked out if someone gives you permission. Just make sure you get it in writing so you can safeguard yourself and safeguard your client. My point in going over these minimum responsibilities is, yes, in the purchase agreement, you are not necessarily a party to things, but you are going to represent your client and you're going to assist them through all the contingencies in the contract. You're going to teach them what they mean. You're going to tell them what they are. You're going to advise them on their deadlines, and you should help them meet those deadlines, okay? Now, how far into the contract to close you choose to get into is up to you. Personally, I recommend you hire someone that does it at a high level. We have in-house transaction management services. That's Pam Malta here. We can teach you how to run transaction management. You are on a team that probably has a transaction coordinator that does it at a high level. You are an agent. Your job and what you are good at is go find the business, convert the business, represent the business, and write the offer, secure the contract. Go put those responsibilities on those of us who are trained to do it at a high level and go get more business to get paid more to help more people, okay? That's my spiel on that. Obviously, in order for you to do that, you have to first learn what needs to be done and how it needs to be done. So this is the buyer representation agreement. I am only working on the Illinois side today. I'm sorry, guys, I can't train you on the Missouri side. I'm not licensed there. But this is the first piece of compliance. Why is this the first piece of compliance? What is happening this year on August 12th, 17th?
Oh yeah, the settlement went through. We gotta adjust how buyers are gonna be paying the realtors.
You must be representing a buyer through some form of exclusive representation agreement, or one-time representation agreement, or limited representation agreement before you can ever bring them into a property again. We don't yet know how that's going to be policed. We're waiting for the association to get us the new documents. We're waiting for the state to tell us what that's gonna look like as a standard operating procedure. But the one thing that is absolutely true is you cannot enter a property with a customer until they become your client through some type of representation agreement. Does everybody understand that? And I would like a yes from everybody.
Yes.
Yes,
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you. You can no longer, after August, gosh, I'm sorry, 12 or 17, I'll have to get that exact date, enter a property without representing. So this is your first piece of compliance. Okay? When I say compliance, who does not know what I mean when I say compliance? Anybody? Compliance is the process we have to meet per the state of Illinois for all of our documentation in a transaction. And until compliance has approved all of the documentation legally required to transact, you will not get your paycheck. Does that make sense?
I thought it was something different.
Okay, tell me more about that. Maybe someone else thinks the same.
So I thought, so coming from a regulatory compliance background, it's like the rules you must follow to successful execution of whatever mission you have. So it's kind of the same, but you broke it down.
Both, yes, you're talking about the process of getting to our compliance review, which is working in compliance. You're using the right language, absolutely. And then I'm also talking about the final compliance, which if we have worked in a compliance manner, all we should have to do is submit everything, get our stamp of approval, which our team does a phenomenal job of doing and getting us paid within hours of closing. If you have all your documentation and your ducks in a row, you'll get paid literally within an hour or two of your closing. And that money will be sitting in your bank account because Amy rocks and you have gotten your compliance in because you've taken this class and you're gonna leave here and always do it perfectly, right? Melissa, I see you peeking in. Thank you for joining us. Okay, so first piece of compliance that you must meet is a representation agreement. It's going to be a buyer representation agreement if you're with a buyer. It's going to be a listing, exclusive listing agreement if you are working with a seller. Now, let's take one more step back. Do you represent someone if you're just interacting with them? Someone comes in an open house, you're hosting it, you don't represent the seller in this case, in this scenario. They start talking to you about all their things and what they want and what they're trying to do. Do you represent this person at this time?
no,
No. No,
What
Nope.
should you disclose to this person at that time?
that you don't represent them.
There it is, that you do not represent them. So that's called the disclosure of no agency. It is so nice to meet you. I'm so glad you joined us at this open house today. Just so you know, I don't represent these sellers. Also, currently, you and I are not in an agency relationship. What does that mean? Let me tell you what that means. But here is a disclosure of no agency so that you know that in this moment, I'm not acting as your representative. That is the proper way of interacting with a customer. Okay, and you can tell them this is for your protection, so you are completely aware of my role in this conversation. However, if now the person makes a request for you to perform a minimum license duty. Hey, Michael, I would really love to talk to you after this open house about what I'm trying to accomplish in my purchase goals. Are you available? Awesome. Michael's phone ring, ring, ring. Hey, Michael, it's Shannon. It was great to meet you today. Listen, I'm really trying to get into a house. I need to get in there in the next 30 days. I want to go through 123 Main Street. Can you take me there?
I can if we agree, go into a buyer's agreement together.
Okay. That's the concept. We can work on that script together, but that's the concept. I would love to work with you, Shannon. I cannot wait to show you 123 Main Street. Before I show you 123 Main Street, I have an appointment available at 2. Can you come in and meet with me? The way I can make sure you're ready with everything we need in order to possibly purchase this home. Sure thing. I can come in at 2 tomorrow and meet you. Can we go see the house after that though? It's not a trick question.
Oh,
Not that-
well, if you enter into the buyer's agreement, then yes, but if not, then
The
unfortunately.
answer is like, probably, yeah. I'll see if there's an appointment available, right? You're probably not gonna start talking contracts. Okay, but at this point, Shannon has started asking Michael to work for her. Michael has agreed to start working for her. Does Michael currently represent me? Are we in an agency relationship?
Not without a signed
Yes,
agreement.
We are in an agency relationship.
It's like verbal.
We are in an agency relationship until Shannon tells Michael otherwise in writing. And let me show you what that looks like. There is a beautiful pamphlet that I give to all my clients, and I recommend, and I always have, that you give this to your clients too. This teaches them about agency relationship in Illinois. Okay? Until Shannon says, you know what, Michael? Thanks for your time, but I met Sally and I'm gonna go work with her, so I no longer want to work with you. And Shannon emailed that to Michael. Shannon has terminated agency relationship with Michael in that case. But what if Shannon had just called Michael? Said, hey, Michael, I don't want to work with you anymore. Sally and I are best friends now. And even though you've shown me 50 houses, I'm moving on. Michael's going to say, I understand that you have found an agent that works better for you. Is there anything I can do before you hire Sally to earn your business? That's the first thing Michael's gonna say. Right? Shannon's gonna say, no, I really just wanna work with Sally. Michael's now gonna say, I understand, thank you for the opportunity. We're not in the business of holding anyone hostage, right? Unless you started working for them, then you can decide if you need to take further action. Michael's gonna say, can you send me an email that says that? Okay, so it's our responsibility to teach the consumers the appropriate way to act. Because we are realtors and we have a code of ethics, right? So we are in an agency relationship the moment we start working together until there's a written agreement that says otherwise. The Consumer's Guide to Real Estate Agency in Illinois is not required for compliance. I should probably sign this. But it is highly recommended that you use this tool as a great way to have the agency conversation with your consumers before they become clients. So they're crystal clear on what is and is not your responsibility, what is and is not a problem, right? One of the biggest questions is that I get, can you show this house to another one of your clients? Yes, I can. That is not a violation of agency relationship. Now, if you both want to make an offer on that property, I will inform both of you, and then you can both decide if you want to work with me under a contemporaneous offer situation, which is that I am representing both of you in offers at the same time for the same property. You must inform your customer or your client at this point, and you must give them the opportunity to decide if that works for them or not. You will not mislead them. You will not tell them they have to. You will ask them if they want to or if they don't. If they don't, you can ask them if you may refer them to another agent and get a referral out of them. Or you should ask them to, do you prefer to hire a different agent? You have to do the right thing for your consumer and customer, not the right thing for you, regardless of if you need a paycheck or not. I will say that till the cows come home. It does not matter if you're getting paid next month or not. Your responsibility is to the consumer, the client, and the brokerage. Okay? I know I'm making direct statements, but this is to keep you guys out of what? What did I say earlier? Real estate jail. It's a real thing. And I don't know about you, but I like to keep the money that I earn. Okay. So the first piece of compliance is the representation agreement, whether it's a buyer's agreement or an agency agreement. What do you do with this first piece of compliance? When you're working through compliance, we're going to go in our amazing command. Who is using command right now?
I'm starting. I'm trying to get it
Starting?
together.
He's
Yeah.
getting familiar.
Excuse me.
Okay. This is command. Command is our contact management system that we do not pay anything extra for every month. We have one technology fee that gives us an insane amount of technology, right? That gives us marketing, referral, contact database. It gives us marketing design. It gives us opportunity to run reporting on all of our business. It gives us an opportunity to create custom landing pages for our listings. Why is that important? So our listing leads come back to us, right? It gives a consumer interface. We have our own apps that we share with our consumers so that they can interact with our database and we can always watch what they're doing. Command is powerful. And it's all included in our one technology fee, which to me is insane. Now, I, for example, run a team. Before Command came along, I was in a different contact management system. And I am still in that contact management system, which costs me a lot of money, a lot more than we all pay for our technology fee. That's where my business lives. I have not migrated it to Command yet. It is in the works, you know, in the future. But if I were you as a new agent, what's our business model in the MREA? Lead with revenue, not debt. Work in a free system. Don't go buying other systems when you have one that is phenomenal, amazing, full, all-encompassing, and can grow your business for the pennies you spend on technology fees, right? So that's what Command is. And this is the interface that allows us to get to compliance everything that we transact so that we can get paid. So this is an opportunity. An opportunity is essentially your sale or your purchase, right? And I'm going to show you what running compliance looks like. In our opportunity, we have a client plugged in here. I'm not going to show you guys how to set it up right now. That's a different class. But we have a tab called Documents. And in Documents is where our compliance relationship with the Market Center exists. And this is where we submit everything that is required. If it says conditional, don't worry about it saying conditional right now because this is an already approved file. This would say required at another time. But you can see right here, there are 3 parts to the compliance process, and that is your consultation, meaning your listing agreement or your buyer's agreement, because you get to decide if you're, you know, if you're doing a purchase, if you're doing a listing, whatnot. And then you have your under contract file, which is your contract to purchase, whether it's residential, it's commercial, it's land, whatever it is. And then you have your closed file. This is where you submit your Alta statement, your final walkthrough form, any warranty paperwork, any additional commission details you need, yada, yada, yada. So everything is like super easy to use here. You've got your folder for your buyer rep in this agreement. You come right in here, you go over to the side. How do I want to upload it? You upload it either from .loop, because you can start your .loop from command. That way, all you have to do is pull it through command. You don't have to download it on your computer and upload it again. You literally can just pull it through command, talks to .loop. Amazing, our technology, right? It's freaking insane how easy KW makes it easy for us. And then you submit your exclusive representation agreement. You hit the little submit button. It goes to our compliance review department and they pull it up and they look, okay, is it all executed? Is the client named? Is the brokerage name? What type of representation is it? Where is the representation for? Is there an additional designated agent? Guys, there's only one designated agent allowed per representation agreement. If you're on a team or you have multiple people working with a client, you use the additional designated agent form. Okay, but for representation agreement, there's only one agent. Even if you're on a team, there's only one agent per representation form. And you've got the term of the contract. The term of the contract needs to be outlined, right? You've got the compensation. This is the important part. If you do not have this filled out, how are you guaranteed to get paid? Okay. In this case, for this person, my minimum commission was set to 2.5%, meaning if we ran into any purchase where the sellers offered anything less than 2.5%, this is going to be billed to closing, and the additional commission that is short is going to be added to the buyer's bottom line in their closing costs to bring to closing. Does everyone understand how this works?
We wouldn't have to pay up front or any of that, just happens at closing. Is that correct?
They can pay up front if they want. They can send the brokerage a check beforehand, but at closing is usually the easiest. Yeah. What are the duties? We went over those. What is the brokerage duties? What are the buyer's duties? Does everyone know that your buyer has some minimum duties they have to fulfill in this contract? Shocking, right? Does this surprise anyone? It shouldn't surprise you because you should have read the buyer's representation agreement, right? But the buyer also has minimum duties that they have to fulfill. Because if someone hires you and says, I want you to be at my beck and call to go show houses, but then with reasonable notice, they are never available, how can you fulfill this contract? Right? This spells them out. They're required to tell you what they want. They're required to be available with notice. They're required to get you the necessary information in order to carry out their obligations and goals. They need to be available. They need to follow the terms of this contract. So yes, the buyer is saying they are entering to an agreement that they have responsibilities for. What happens if you fail to close? These are all contracts you need to know and learn, guys. Okay, that's all filled out. It needs to be signed by both parties. Digital signatures have dates on them, so most people don't put dates here. It needs to be accepted by the brokerage. Anita is my personal managing broker. That's why you are seeing her signature twice on here. Otherwise, you would see Ginger Blasingame for Illinois, or I think Jeb for Missouri, if I'm not mistaken. But Anita Anthony is my managing broker, so she's the acting representative for Keller Williams, and she is the managing broker. That's why she's signed twice. And then we have a little contact form here at the bottom. So compliance is checking that this is all fully and properly filled out, and then they are approving it for you, okay? Any questions about that? Okay, moving right along. The second piece to the compliance process is what we call the contract to purchase real estate for primary residential home sales. I'm going to use this contract because it's the most common contract. if you use land, commercial, new construction builder contracts, all of these contingencies reside in the contract. You need to read each contract and pull them out the same way I'm going to show you how to do today. Okay? So here we go. Let's break down the contract to purchase. Let's pull out all the contingencies together and let's talk about how we're going to execute those contingencies during contract to close. Everybody ready? Everybody's so excited. No one's excited. I know, guys, it's contract to close. I'm sorry. I'm trying. Okay. Purchase price is your first main contingency. This is the price you have offered to pay. Let me close this door so I don't annoy people. Okay. So purchase price should be filled out. Please fill it out so that it is fully legible. Okay, don't skip corners. It takes 2 seconds to put in zeros. And believe it or not, we buy houses with pennies on them too. So if the offer is 78 cents, don't forget to put 78 cents in there. There are people who, for whatever reason, that's important to them. So purchase price fully written out in numerical form. Earnest money. Does everybody know what earnest money is? That's our next contingency. Does anybody not know and need an explanation? I'm going to give you the earnest money explanation because I know everybody's busy and doing stuff, but oftentimes I find that there's really big confusion around earnest money. What is earnest money? Where does it go? Who does it come from? What happens to it? The easiest explanation is it's the thing of value that in the state of Illinois makes the contract, what's the word I'm looking for? I don't remember my license law language now. It's a thing of value that needs to be placed on the contract, right? I'm sorry, I can't English this morning. If there is no earnest money, this contract is not valid. Now, interestingly enough, did you know that earnest deposits aren't always cash? Does that surprise anyone? They can be anything of value that both parties agree to. We've had people put down deeds to vehicles, personal property. Like, I'm sure if you talk to people who have been doing this much longer than me, you'd find some interesting things that have been put down as earnest funds. The most common is cash. We do not hold escrows at Keller Williams Marquis. The majority of brokerages in the area do not hold escrow. Some builders hold their own escrows. Strano used to hold their own escrow. I believe that has changed at this point. And so who holds escrow the majority of the time? Well, number one, we're going to look at the contract and find out who's going to hold escrow. Most of the time, the listing agent's going to tell you. If you feel strongly about not working with whoever the escrow holder is, that needs to be negotiated with the sellers if you want it to be held somewhere else. Okay? So it's an escrow account, and this escrow account is a non-interest bearing escrow account, meaning these title companies are not profiting from holding these escrow funds. Okay? Who does that money belong to once it's deposited? Who can tell me?
It belongs to, well, it's given by the buyer, so and it's just held by the title company and it's credited at closing.
That's the process, but who does it belong to?
That's kind of a good question, because if there's a dispute, it stays with the title company until it is reconciled.
Right. Wouldn't the contract spell that out though?
Not necessarily, but that's partially true, Sandy. It doesn't belong to anybody.
Yeah.
This
But even,
money no longer belongs to the seller, no longer belongs to the buyer. Because in order for it to be released from escrow, whether it's to a buyer, seller, or the state of Illinois, or the brokerage companies, there has to be a written agreement for that to happen between the parties, the buyer and the seller.
Mhm.
So it's a third-party account that the buyer and seller can no longer access, okay? Who can tell me in a primary residential home loan or in a primary residential purchase agreement in Illinois, the one contingency that guarantees the earnest funds to be returned to the buyer? Who knows it?
Financing,
Financing, says Sandy.
Same, unable to establish.
Michael says financing. Is there a contingency that guarantees the return of earnest funds to the buyer?
wouldn't it be if it's a fault of the seller?
I'm gonna tell all of you right now, and this is not to make anybody look bad. You better go learn your contract if you can't answer this question. If you can't answer this question correctly, it means you don't know your contract yet. And don't feel bad. Most people
if the contract fails at no fault of the buyer, is that it?
Right. That's what I thought, if it was a fault of the seller, but
don't. There is only one contingency and one case that protects the buyer's earnest funds in a guaranteed manner. I'm gonna show you what it is.
the inspection part, but wouldn't that still, no?
No,
Okay,
it's the appraisal, but it's a specific part of the appraisal.
gotcha.
It's only in case of a VA home loan, failure to issue notice of value in the amount of the purchase price. There is an amendatory clause. It's called an amendatory clause for the VA home loan. You may have heard that term for an FHA loan too. The amendatory clause from the Department of Veterans Affairs says that in the event that the notice of value, which is, if you don't know the VA home loan, the notice of value is essentially the amount that the home is worth. The VA calls it notice of value, or NOV. The VA mandatory clause says that if there is a failure to issue a notice of value for the purchase price of the contract, and the two parties cannot agree to either reduce the purchase price to the NOV value or appraisal value, or to compromise to a new price, or to compromise to the current contract price, in which case the borrower has to make up the difference in cash. It cannot be financed. If there is a failure to do any of those things, the seller is required to return the earnest funds. 100% of them. Okay? That is absolutely the only contingency that protects the earnest funds. Do not promise your buyer that if they go through inspections and don't like the result of the inspection and change their mind, that they can get their earnest funds back. That is 100% not correct. The release of earnest funds is always a negotiation. Now, generally, is it true that when we follow the contract, most parties are agreeable to return the earnest funds and move on? Yes. But I will tell you, people are people and sometimes react on emotion and sometimes are not agreeable, no matter how in the right you are or how well you follow the process. Okay? Do not promise that earnest funds can be returned. Okay? So purchase price, earnest funds. Any questions about this contingency? This contingency says by how many days the buyer has to deliver them, within how many business days after the effective date. So let's break that down. Saturday is not a business day, Sunday is not a business day, a federal holiday is not a business day. And what is the effective date of the contract? Who can tell me?
Signed.
The day it is fully signed by all parties, so the last signature. That becomes the effective date, and all of our contingency dates, almost all of our contingency dates, run off of the effective date, okay? Home warranty plan. The home warranty contingency is really lovely because a seller may offer one, a seller may not offer one, a buyer may ask for one. A buyer may also choose to pay themselves for a home warranty. It's just going to be named in the contract so no one forgets to order it and bill it to closing. Does everyone know the concept of home warranties, or is this a new concept for anyone? Okay, this is the contingency number 6 right here, paragraph 6. This is where the home warranty is named, who the company is, the maximum cost of this policy. Let's talk about the inclusions and exclusions contingency. This contingency means this is the personal property that is considered, what do we call it in Illinois? Real property, right? No, wait, not real property, personal property that is going to pass with the sale at time of closing for no additional money. So if it's in the house, it's included. Above ground pool and their equipment. So you don't have to put pool equipment in the addendum E. All the bathroom mirrors, people will walk away with the bathroom mirrors. I promise you. The ceiling fans. Any attached smart home technologies. A Ring doorbell, a Nest thermostat. People take these all the time. Have the conversation with the seller. Does your seller intend to take them? Yes. What will they replace them with? Let me run that by my buyer. No, they want the Nest thermostat. It was there at time of showing. It wasn't excluded in the listing. We would like to keep it, or we would like it replaced with something similar. Attic fans, awnings, blind shade shutters. Curtains are not included. Curtain rods are, curtains are not. Now, some sellers will leave them, and as long as your buyer's okay with that, great. Carpeting. Seems like an obvious, but a rug is not carpeting, guys. Built-in appliances, a cooktop, a wall oven, a microwave, a wall microwave, a stove that is on wheels or legs that can be pulled out is not attached. A refrigerator, most of them are not built in. There's a few that are, is not attached. So your addendum E needs to have your refrigerator, your stove, your oven, a countertop microwave if your people want it. Fences, fireplace screens and doors. Screens, a lot of sellers will take them with them. Well, guess what? Our contract says they're included. So if you show up at closing and it's not there and it's important to your buyer, then we're gonna need to come up with something at final walkthrough. Garage door openers and all remotes. Really, this means a minimum of 1, right? Because you have no way of knowing how many remotes there are. If you want a specific number of remotes, you need to put it in the personal property addendum E. You know what's not in this list? And do you know what's not anywhere else in the contract? The house keys, guys. The house keys are not in here. I have had to pay for houses to be rekeyed just to make sure I could take care of my customer. I could have just said, sorry, there's no keys. You're going to have to get the house rekeyed. Good luck with a locksmith. No, from there on out, any offer I bring to you will have on the addendum E house key. Because I don't want to be stuck with a locksmith because it is not included in the personal property. Seller said, I don't have any. I've never locked my door. Problem's on you. Guess what? Problem was on me to fix. Okay, so anyway, read through this list. If it is excluded specifically, one of the most common exclusions are TV mounts, wall mounts, and brackets. Most sellers do not read this in the listing agreement and take those with them. Ask the question if there are TV mounts. Mr. Seller's agent, are your sellers leaving the TV mounts? Oh no, that goes with their 68,000 inch screen TV. That is definitely going with them. Okay, are they gonna patch the damage it makes when you take it off? Oh no, it's as is. We would like it patched. In that case, what do you need to do? You need to exclude it in the contract, and you need to have a repairs addendum, addendum D, I think it's called, to repair the wall. You need to be specific about it, okay? So this is another contingency. When you get the contract in,
Sorry.
Sorry.
No, that's okay.
I know you knew I was in here.
No, I'm listening to this.
Oh yeah, I was just kind of zooming.
when you get the contract in, this is what you have to go through with your buyer,
Okay, see, I'm actually trying to go to school.
okay? You have to teach them all of these things, and these are the things that you have to manage in the sale. So when you show up for final walkthrough, you should have this contract and be going through the house with them. This is how you do your due diligence, guys. Okay, closing contingency. You must help your buyer meet or help your seller meet this closing date on or before this date. And what does closing mean? The sale has funded, the seller has moved out and removed all personal belongings, left the home in broom swept condition, and access to the house has been fully given to the buyer. Seller shall deliver possession and any keys to the property to the buyer no later than the time of closing, okay? This is when you must be able to allow your buyer to move in the house. If there is any need for this to be different, meaning the seller needs to hold over, there's a contract addendum that is called possession after closing by seller. It has terms such as rents, security deposits, homeowner's insurance. You can't just willy-nilly say, yeah, you can stay. There has to be a contract addendum in place for anything that is outside of delivering possession and the buyer fully taking over. Utilities are going to stop in the seller's name, buyers are going to start, okay? So you have to help your title company, your buyer, your seller, your lender, your homeowner's insurance guy, your warranty guy, your home inspector, your occupancy. You have to help make sure that everything is done by this date. That's your role. You're the coordinator, basically. Does that make sense? The financing contingency. Is the lender a party to this contingency? Who's responsible for the financing contingency, guys? The buyer is responsible, not the lender. The lender is not a party anywhere in this contract. Your buyer is ultimately responsible for meeting the financing contingency. How are you going to do that as their fiduciary to make sure that can happen? They don't know how to make that happen, right? Luckily, our lenders know how to make that happen and know our contract. But we're going to work together to say, hey, Mr. Buyer, have you within 2 business days after the effective date applied for the financing indicated in this contingency? You're probably not going to use those words, right? But that's the concept. You're going to be like, hey, have you started everything with the lender? You're going to call lender. Hey, Mr. Lender, is everything started? Have you guys ordered the appraisal? Have you met disclosure, initial disclosure? Have they signed their initial disclosure? Have you locked in their interest rate, right? The interest rate is a piece of the puzzle. What if you wrote a contract at 7% interest rate? The interest rate spiked because you know the interest rates do not get locked down until you have a contract. And all of a sudden the interest rate is 8.5%. And Mr. Buyer can't afford the house payment anymore. What are you gonna do? What are you gonna do? Well, the first thing you're gonna do is you're probably gonna say, hey, Mr. Buyer, I'm sorry that this lender isn't able to service you, Let's go talk to some other lenders and see if they can get us down back to an interest rate that you can afford. It's okay to shop lenders. Be transparent. Mr. Lender, thank you for taking care of them. That rate's not going to work for them. We're going to have to talk to some other lenders because we have a contract to fulfill, right? So let's say you go, you find another lender, they get pre-approved, they get them at a rate of 7.25. Mr. Buyer says, yes, I can afford that. What needs to happen? A contract amendment
Contract amendment.
to change the no greater than to 7.25. That way everyone stays in contract and buyer can't terminate, right? But let's say you can't find a lender that can give them a rate that they can afford. What's going to happen? They're going to get a loan denial. And you're probably going to go to Mr. Seller and say, unfortunately, the buyer has been locked in at an interest rate that causes them to no longer afford the home. We are going to have to terminate. You're going to serve a notice attached with the loan denial, and then you're going to wait to see how it plays out with the seller. Hopefully the seller will be agreeable to move on. But this is contract to close, guys. This is your job. This is what I mean by you have to know this contract because you have to help your buyer execute all of these terms. Are you all tracking where I'm going with this? Does any of this surprise you that it is this detailed?
Not at all.
Yeah, I can tell you already we're gonna run out of time because dissecting the contract, I don't know how Anita teaches this class, this is how I teach the class. Dissecting this contract is super important for everybody to understand every line of it, and your job in assisting your seller or your buyer, your clients, in carrying out these contingencies. You absolutely have to know what it says. And if you're out there talking to people before you know what this says, how are you going to answer their questions? How are you going to teach them what step comes next, right? So please know your contract. And there's a lot more in this contingency you need to learn. So please make sure that you do. Next contingency in the financing goes into all the different types of loans, FHA, VA, mortgage assumptions. If you ever run into an assumption, you're welcome to give me a call. I've done plenty of them. Some of them are easy, some of them are real big headaches, but a lot of times they're really worth it. You can really help some people out. Money mortgages, secondary mortgages, contract for deed, cash transactions, they're all in here, okay? Know these so you know your deadlines. Appraisal. Appraisal contingency is next. The appraisal contingency is not the responsibility of the lender, but who always gets blamed for the appraisal being late? The lender. Do you know the lender isn't even most of the time responsible for what the appraiser does? No. Because what happened after the market crash? There was a big buffer put between loan officers and agents, right? And appraisers so that we couldn't influence them. So now appraisals, in most cases, not always, but in a lot of cases, are sent out to third-party companies that then distribute it to an appraiser. Appraiser picks up the order, yada, yada, yada. So they're what we call arm's length movements, okay? We're not directly involved. We're not influencing the party. We have to wait for the third party to do their job and then get back to us. This is when they're due. You have to help the lender and the buyer coordinate that. And then you have to help the seller coordinate access for the appraiser, okay? This contingency also says what happens if there's a shortage in appraisal value. Know your contingencies. Know how you have to notify the other party that there's a shortage. Know what you have to provide in order to request a price adjustment. If you're going through a VA, know what a reconsideration of value process looks like. Know what the waterfall, or I'm sorry, know what the Tidewater process looks like. Tidewater is the process of seller having the opportunity to submit new comparables. These contingencies are short, but there's actually so much that goes into it. So sit with your lenders, educate yourself on what goes into financing, what goes into appraisal. That way you can guide your buyer properly. Inspections. The process for inspections is this. This is your next contingency. This is one of the biggest ones. This is where things fall apart. How many days do you have, does your buyer have, to fully inspect a property on a residential home purchase? Who knows? 20. Our closings are normally 30 to 40 days, right? 20 days to inspect a property is a lot of time. Especially because then there's another 10 days to negotiate repairs. Now you're at closing date and the repairs haven't even been done. Buyer has 20 days to do their due diligence to hire a licensed Illinois licensed inspector and inspect the property. Or to bring in any other inspectors. 20 days. What needs to happen by the end of that 20